like, then you can, again, just click on example and you have that available for you. Another thing, there are tons of these things on this software. Another favorite of mine is the test strategy and the think sheet associated with that. And this is when we're having kids design experiments. And the tests is a little experimental strategy called tests. The T step is target a question, and so what this think sheet provides are the sort of question starters to help them write their research question. For an example, what happens to blank when blank is added to or subtracted from blank? Or another possible question is, what do blank know or perceive about blank? Or how well does blank work when you're trying to blank? Or how did blank change over a blank amount of time? In other words, these are the most common questions that might be asked when we're conducting research. And so what kids do is they use these to cue them to help them form their own question. And then the E step is establish a plan for conducting your experiment. And so the first thing we need to do when we're establishing our plan is ask, what kind of data do we need to answer our question? And so these are a series of questions designed to cue the kids to think about data. For example, are we going to repeatedly measure something? With what? Are we going to count the number of times something happens? When should the counting occur and how often? Are we going to make a list of observations and categorize them later, etc.? So these are just questions that are designed to help them think through the process of identifying the kind of data they need. And then the next part of this is establish a step-by-step plan for collecting the data. So the first 4 steps of all experiments are the same, so they're listed, and then they add the additional steps for their unique experiment. Then what they do is of course, they collect their data, and the last step of test is to tabulate it. And so again, this is designed to cue them to think about different aspects of tabulating data. And the first part is note the calculations that you'll need that will need to be performed to make sense of the data. So for example, are you going to sum numbers in each category, or are you going to subtract them from different categories to determine differences, or are you going to compute means or percentages, or what are you going to do with the numbers? And then finally decide how the results are going to be displayed. Are you going to use a table or a graph or a bar graph, a web or a Venn diagram, etc., depending on the nature of the data you're collecting. And so this is just a think sheet that's designed to help kids sort of think through the whole process of designing their experiment. So there are a variety of tools in here for helping them plan their projects or actually conduct their investigations. Another area that you might want to visit is this section on connecting assessment. What we're looking at here is a couple of things. One is some ways of assessing content subject like social studies and science, and also ways of assessing skills, processes, and strategies. So let's just visit this section on authentic assessment for a second. Again, you have several choices that you can visit. One is an overview that talks about why use authentic assessment and what it is. Some guidelines here in terms of designing rubrics, and also how to use think sheets in lieu of traditional objective tests. For an example, the frame that we were looking at in the earlier video actually can be a very effective device in evaluating students' knowledge of the subject matter that you're teaching. Also, the clarifying tables that we're using earlier can be great alternatives to tests. For an example, if you're assessing students' knowledge of events, you can click on that for information related to that. And each of these sections is designed in a similar manner in that it provides a sample rubric that what are various things to consider in terms of depth and breadth of understanding, and some sort of guidelines related to that. And then there are a variety of samples of assessment devices. Here's an example of how to use an event concept table to assess students' knowledge of an event. In this case, the example is, what do they know about the Battle of the Bulge? Likewise, we can use assessment of knowledge of events in science, in processes and things of that nature. So you can use these think sheets in lieu of traditional tests, and depending on what it is you're assessing, whether it's their understanding of famous people or places or concepts and so forth, for guidelines under each, you can click on any of those. So as you can tell, there are an awful lot of tools in this toolbox that you can use. One of the things that the CD also comes with is sort of a bonus, which are some graphic organizer templates that are interactive. Now, those interactive templates are not part of this toolbox. In order to get to the interactive graphics, what I'm going to have to do is go back to the opening screen that first appears when you first open the disk. So to do that, I'm going to go up here to the upper right-hand corner and click on the X, and that will close that out. And then on the minimize screen, and that should take me back to the very first screen that opens up when you open the disk. And if you recall, there are a couple of folders there. One says Adobe Reader, one says ThinkSheet Templates, and then there's an icon that says click to begin training and an icon that says click to use the software. What we're going to do is we're going to open the folder that says ThinkSheet Templates. So I'm going to open that up. And what you see now is a choice between black and white templates and color templates. So I'm going to click on color. And so now what you'll see is several choices. For example, they're graphic organizer templates that are for think ahead and think back. There's some for cause and effect, compare and contrast, concepts and vocabulary, and hierarchic. And so just to illustrate this, let me just click on the hierarchic version. And we'll open that up. And again, since there are a number of different types of hierarchical graphic organizers, you have several choices. So since I'm interested in frames, I'm going to click on frames. And so now you have several choices of different types of frames. For an example, a one main idea frame, two main idea, three main idea, four, etc. So I'll just click on the three main idea frame. And these will work both on a Mac or a PC. And so a graphic will come up. And since this is sort of a small version, one of the things I can do with this, and your computer probably has something similar, is I can increase the size so it's easier to see. Make that large. And so the way these interactive graphics work, it's really neat. You just click on the section that you want to input information for and begin typing. So for an example, if you're getting ready to teach a lesson about Huck Finn, you might just click on the title section and type Huck Finn. And so you're ready to go, and then you can type your is about statement. And whatever it is you wanted to type there. And then several main ideas that you might want to type about Huck Finn, and of course the essential details for each of those main ideas. So you simply click on the box that you want to input information on, and then type what you want. You would use these in a very similar way that you use a word processor. Since these are templates, in order to save your graphic on Huck Finn or whatever you did it on, you go up to File and then slide it down to Save As, and you type in the new file name, Huck Finn or whatever, and of course select the location where you wanted to store that file. I think you'll find that these are very handy because they allow you to open these up and input the information, and kids can use these as well, particularly when they're developing writing and so forth. Okay, well this brings an end to the guided tour of the software, and so what we're going to do now is I'm going to share with you how to get started when you actually are sitting at the computer completing this training yourself. So what I'll do is I'm just going to close out the screen, and we are going to return to the screen that first opens up when you load the disk. And so it should say Make Sense over here, and you'll notice that there are a couple of different files. One says Adobe Reader, one is the ThinkSheet Templates. There are two icons here that says click here to begin the training, and the other is click here to use the software. And so now we're talking about how to begin the training. What I'm going to do is just click on this icon that says click to begin training. What will show up is a set of instructions for what you need to do. Now I realize you probably can't read these instructions on screen. One of the things that needs to happen is if these have not already been printed out for you and given to you as a handout, then you should print